So I will just continue where I stopped in my last video. So I was talking about the tropical climate that was really optimal for many life forms to live and flourish. That was once on Earth, when in the golden age, when there was paradise-like reality here. So the researcher or people, they say they find huge plants, remains of tropical plants in regions that are now frozen with permafrost, or just Arctic and Antarctic regions. That and they're just basically telling us that once this whole world was tropical, and they would just say it was called Pangaea, and it was one supercontinent, meaning that all land was kind of together, you know, like they're just showing this. If you just look up Pangaea, that was one supercontinent, and they say after that was the tectonic drift that formed the land masses and continents the way we see it now. However, I would suggest that before the flood, that mainly this was land, and the oceans were not as huge as now. They just formed smaller water bodies, and the water was distributed within the life forms, because organisms are made up from, I don't remember exactly, but something from 70 to 90% of water. So they're also telling us that before there was much more life, and that we see now just a small percentage of life that was on Earth before, and that is science telling us. So yeah, and here we were talking about that these huge masses of plant life was producing a high level of oxygen. These were silica based trees, so not sure how the metabolism was working, if it is exactly comparable to carbon based life forms we see now. If we see smaller trees, they're carbon based. This is a smaller tree like we see today. So, but they can prove that before the oxygen levels were really high. So it suggests that plants were producing oxygen too. So the water cycle was just like, it was like today, but I mean, it was not like today, but the same principles, but much water was stored within the plants, and they formed maybe less clouds. Maybe the water was more evenly distributed within the air, and we don't see weather. You know, there was a time without weather. That is from documented in history. So the time before time was the time before weather, and maybe that what it actually meant, that when environmental conditions were like this, there was no weather like we know it today, because the water cycle was different, and also wind current were maybe different because of all those life forms. We know from tropical regions that weather is completely different than from areas where there is less plant life. So yeah, and I was connecting this to the often documented long lifespan of organisms and people before. So we people, organisms, and as humans, we have the capacity to live forever. That's the eternal life that Quasi-Luminous is talking about. It's really not science fiction, or that's really possible. And they're even telling you that if you look it up, immortality or eternal life, or slowing down aging or preventing aging, they will tell you that aging and sickness is slow poisoning. And when you imagine that the environment now is post-apocalyptic and completely unhealthy because of all the imbalances and toxic substances. Even before modern days, let's say before modern lifestyle, the environment is completely not suitable for health and regeneration of the body, because the body is able to regenerate very quickly, but only if it's faster in regenerating than in being poisoned. And in today's environment, this is just not possible. In today's environment, it's too much imbalance and toxics that the body is able to keep up with regenerating and cleaning, and it maybe also does not have enough resources and substances that strengthen the body. So we can imagine in an environment like this, where it was extremely balanced and healthy and not damaging, but rather keeping us healthy and optimal conditions for regeneration, we could live forever. So if we bring forth heaven on earth, and we bring the seeds back to plant those giant trees and restore the paradise, natural paradise it was once was, we can imagine easily that eternal life is possible. And besides, the death reincarnation cycle we going through now is really a good tool for controlling us. So I think I'm repeating myself, but however, this is all interconnected. The aging, poisoning, destruction of environment that leads to poisoning, that leads to aging, that leads to death. That is all keeping us dumbed down and make us forget when we reincarnate again. So we are not able to collect as much knowledge in this short lifespan, and knowledge is power, and knowledge is key to escape, to make this world a better place. And blood over intent is the knowledge you really gotta have to change this reality. Yeah, this was just what I had still to say about this the great flood, because actually all the water that was stored in these trees, imagine when they got cut down or destroyed, that water went somewhere. So it basically formed the great body of water we see today. Or it is easy to imagine that this happened when you imagine all this, the water stored within. So this water had to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. Yeah, that's what I had to say for now. I will be making more videos and trying also to provide you with some picture to better illustrate you with what I have just explained. So just take care. And yeah, I just want to say I'm really grateful and thankful that for blood over intent. It's what I have been looking for. So yeah, take care and see you soon.